Was the prophecy of the popes forged? Is the Vatican hiding the truth? Or a big deception? A medieval manuscript lost for 4 centuries has suddenly emerged from the shadows of the Vatican. In it, an enigmatic sequence of 112 Latin phrases that supposedly predicts every pope from the 12th century until the end of time. The latest entry, Peter the Roman, who will shepherd his flock through the final tribulations, when the city on 7 hills will be destroyed and the fearsome judge will judge his people. Hello everyone. Today, we will investigate one of the most controversial prophetic documents in the history of the Catholic Church, the famous prophecy of the popes attributed to Saint Malachy. This list of 112 brief Latin phrases, each supposedly describing a future pope, continues to provoke heated debate among historians, theologians, and enthusiasts of ancient mysteries, from the glory of the olive, the flower of flowers, Pastor et Nauta. These enigmatic phrases, supposedly written by a 12th century Irish archbishop, are often cited during papal conclaves and moments of transition in the Church. But what is the true origin of this document? Are we really witnessing the last popes predicted by an authentic medieval prophecy? In this video, I will present fascinating discoveries that many scholars never mention about the prophecy of Saint Malachy. We will examine original historical documents, analyze sophisticated techniques of prophetic interpretation, and explore the psychological processes that explain why so many people continue to believe in the accuracy of these predictions. What we will discover about the true origin of this prophetic text will surprise skeptics and believers alike. After this analysis, you will see the famous prophecy of the popes in a completely different light. In the next few minutes, I will share evidence that demonstrates how prophetic mottos function radically differently for popes before and after the publication of the text. I will show how certain striking coincidences can be explained by well-documented historical processes, and I will reveal who might really be behind the creation of this famous document attributed to Saint Malachy. If you are interested in religious history, medieval prophecy, or simply want to understand how ancient documents continue to influence contemporary debates about the future of the Church, stay until the end. What you will discover will not only change your view of Saint Malachy's prophecy, but will also transform your understanding of how prophetic texts function throughout history. Let's start by examining the original structure of this mysterious list and the documentary history behind it. The suspicious apparition and the deafening silence. Let's go straight to the epicenter of the enigma, the almost mythical figure of Saint Malachy O'Morgair. Born in Ireland in 1094, an archbishop known for his piety, a reformer of the Church. His death in 1148 occurred in the arms of one of the greatest figures of the medieval faith, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. And here, the first colossal crack in the story we are told. Saint Bernard, his close friend, wrote a detailed biography of Malachy, praising his virtues, narrating his deeds. But about any prophetic gift, about a bombastic list predicting centuries of popes, not a syllable, an absolute, deafening silence. Think with me. How could the greatest chronicler of Malachy's life, his confidant, omit such an extraordinary power, such an impactful legacy? Suspicion begins to creep in. Perhaps this gift simply never existed in the eyes of those who knew it best. Now let's jump forward in time. Almost half a millennium of absolute silence about this supposed prophecy. And then, like a ghost emerging from the mists, it appears documented for the first time only in 1595, almost 450 years after Malachy's death. Who brings it to light? A Benedictine monk, Arnold Wion, in his work Lignum Vitae, Tree of Life. His explanation? He claimed to have found a lost manuscript. How convenient. A document, capable of predicting the fate of the papacy, lost for centuries, appears just as the Catholic Church was plunged into intense turmoil, factional wars and bloody political disputes over the papal succession and the Counter-Reformation. Serious historians don't just scratch their heads, they see giant red flags. Ion never provided concrete details about this miraculous discovery, leaving a trail of doubts, a nebulous and problematic context that reeks of staging. A crucial document appears out of nowhere with no proof of its journey, right at the crucial moment of a power crisis. Cosmic coincidence or a strategic fabrication? But the ultimate clue, the detail that shatters the official narrative and that is rarely mentioned in documentaries that only scratch the surface, lies in a shocking pattern that emerges when we compare the papal mottos before and after this crucial date of 1595. That's when the truth begins to scream. And that's what we're going to dissect next. The fracture in time. The revealing pattern before and after 1595. Here is the key that unlocks much of the enigma of St. Malachy's prophecy, a crucial detail that is often swept under the rug. The glaring difference in the accuracy of the Mai mottos before and after its publication in 1595. When we examine the 74 corresponding mottos for the popes who reigned between the supposed date of the prophecy, 1143, and its appearance in print, 1595, we find astonishingly specific connections. The mottos seem to decipher codes in family names, such as De Rosa Atrebatensi, from the Rose of Arras, for Urban III, whose Crivelli family had a rose on its coat of arms. They reference birthplaces or titles, such as Ex Tetro Carcere, from the Dark Prison, for Celestine V, a hermit who lived in a cave. They point directly to heraldic symbols, such as Piscator Tuscus, the Tuscan fisherman, for Julius III, who was from Tuscany and had fish on his coat of arms. The precision is almost surgical, almost too perfect. Now for the stark contrast, look at the mottos for the popes who came after 1595. The specificity disappears, giving way to a disconcerting lack of clarity. The phrases become ambiguous, open-ended, requiring increasingly creative and, let's be honest, forced interpretive gymnastics to make any sense. Take Montium Custos, Guardian of the Mountains, for Alexander VII, 1655-1667. Today it is said that his Chigi family had mountains on their coat of arms, but this connection is tenuous, very different from the previous direct references. This drastic change in quality is not subtle. It is an exposed fracture in the timeline of prophecy. Historian Francois Steiner has even quantified this, showing statistically that pre-1595 mottos are 3 times more specific than later ones. Even historical errors in early mottos reflect imperfect 16th century, not 12th century knowledge. This screams vaticinium ex eventu, prophecy written after the fact. If Malachy had such clear visions, why did they become short-sighted just after the text was published? Occam's razor suggests the simplest explanation. The writer knew very well who the popes were up to 1595 and was just trying to guess in a general way who would come next. This clear division between before and after 1595 is the key. Have you ever deciphered other famous prophecies that follow exactly this recipe of detailed past and nebulous future? What other examples do you know where the prediction only makes sense after the event happens? Share your findings in the comments below. Let's piece together this historical puzzle of convenient predictions. And if this analysis is clearing the mists of time for you, helping you separate fact from fiction, then join our community of truth seekers. Subscribe to Gaia's Ascension and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next in-depth investigations. The brain behind the curtain. Who benefited? If the prophecy did not come from St. Malachy in the 12th century, then who forged it in the late 16th century and for what purpose? The answer takes us to the beating heart of the political intrigues of the Catholic Church during the Counter-Reformation. It was a time of ideological warfare, factions fighting for power, and religious propaganda was a powerful weapon. Attributing prophetic texts to saintly figures of the past was a common tactic to lend divine weight to very earthly agendas. Many fingers point to Cardinal Girolamo Simoncelli, an influential figure, nephew of a previous pope and linked to the pro-Spanish faction seeking to control the Vatican. The motto that was supposed to follow at the time, Undosus Vir, man of the waves, could be a veiled reference to him, coming from Orvieto, herbs, Vetus, old wavy city, an ingenious ploy to influence future papal elections. This theory gains strength when we note how the list seems to favor certain noble Italian families and align itself with the interests of Spain, the superpower of the time. The number of 112 popes itself does not seem random, starting with Celestine D in 1143 and with some 74 popes already known by 1595. The list would create the expectation of only about 38 more successions, fitting perfectly with the apocalyptic climate that dominated Europe at the end of the 16th century. The publication by Arnold Wyon is also suspicious. Analysis of the Latin used in the mottos shows a style closer to the 16th century than the 12th, and Wyon had connections with Simoncelli circles. Some researchers, such as Saverio Gaeta, even speculate about the involvement of figures, such as Saint Robert Bellarmine, a master of theology and anti-Protestant polemics, who would see value in a Catholic prophecy to counter the apocalyptic narratives used by the reformers against the papacy. Think of the impact. An ancient prophecy that validates the Catholic papal line and predicts its course until the end of time, coming just as the papacy was under attack. The discovery of documents in the Vatican archives by Professor José Antonio Oliveira in 1998, suggesting that drafts of the list were circulated in conclaves before 1595, perhaps to test reactions or influence votes, is almost a surefire proof of manipulation. Different versions, progressive refinements. This does not sound like an immutable divine vision, but rather like a carefully constructed human project. Furthermore, statistical analysis of the language and allusions found in the mottos to later texts about Malachy's death, such as Dante's Divine Comedy, reinforce the idea of a Renaissance creation. We must not forget that pseudepigraphy, falsely attributing texts to ancient and respected authors, was a common practice at the time, a literary and political tool used to give authority to new ideas or agendas. The prophecy of Saint Malachy seems to fit this historical pattern perfectly. Deciphering the present, modern interpretive gymnastics. Moving forward to modern times, the prophecy lives on, but its application reveals more about human psychology than about the future. For the popes of the 20th and 21st centuries, the interpretations of mottos became a fascinating exercise in flexibility and retrospective creativity. The vaguer the motto, the easier it was to adapt it to whoever was elected. Take John the 23rd, 1958-1963, Pastor et Nauta, shepherd and sailor. Only after he was elected did they remember that he was Patriarch of Venice. And what about the other popes from port cities? Silence. Paul VI, 1963-1978, Flos Florum, flower of flowers, had lilies on his coat of arms, like so many other popes whose coats of arms also contained flowers. John Paul III-ish, 1978, De Medietate Lunae, of the half of the moon, had a very short pontificate that coincided with specific lunar phases, something that was only noticed after his sudden death. With John Paul II, 1978-2005, De Labore Solis, of labor, eclipse of the sun, the gymnastics were even greater. It was noted that he was born and buried during partial solar eclipses, a connection forged by the stars, but only realized decades later. Benedict XVI, 2005-2013, Gloria Olivae, the glory of the olive tree, was connected because of the name Benedict and a Benedictine branch called Olivitans. Before the election, the bets were on a literal Olivitan pope, or one from an Italian region famous for olive trees. And now we come to Francis, 2013 present, who should be the dreaded Petrus Romanus, Peter the Roman, the last on the list. But he is Argentine and his name is Francis. What do the interpreters do? They reinterpret. Some now say that Peter the Roman is not an individual motto, but part of a general description of the end times, making Benedict XVI the last pope on the real list. Do you see the pattern? Reality does not fit the prophecy. The interpretation of the prophecy changes. Robert Benincas's study, which analyzed the interpretations before and after papal elections since 1800, confirms it. Pre-election predictions almost never match post-election explanations. This is retrospective adjustment in action, our brains looking for patterns and confirmation for what we want to believe. The extreme vagueness of the mottos, light in the sky, religion devastated, allows this. They are like ink blots in a Rorschach test. We see what we want to see. Michael Simmons' experiment, in which people associated the same slogans with presidents or celebrities, proves how any vague list can be fitted into almost any sequence. It is a testament to the power of suggestion and confirmation bias, phenomena that have kept alive not only this, but many other supposed prophecies throughout history. Legacy of an enigma, faith, history, and critical thinking. So what do we conclude after this journey through the dark corridors of history and prophecy? All the evidence, historical, textual, contextual, and logical, converges overwhelmingly on one conclusion. The prophecy of the popes attributed to Saint Malachy is almost certainly a late 16th century creation, probably composed around 1590 and published in 1595. The dramatic difference in quality between the pre- and post-publication mottos, the anachronisms, the historical silence of 450 years, and the political context of the time make a strong case against the authorship of the 12th century Irish saint. To accept this is not to attack faith, but to practice intellectual honesty in the face of the facts. However, debunking the origin does not negate the enduring cultural and historical impact of this prophecy. It has become an indelible part of Catholic folklore, a prism through which many continue to view the papal succession and speculate about the end times. This teaches us much about how prophetic narratives, even those proven to be inauthentic, can offer meaning, comfort, and a sense of order in uncertain times. They tap into our deep human need to find patterns, to feel that there is a greater plan unfolding, especially when faced with the apparent chaos of history. Confirmation bias and our tendency to seek meaning cause these ideas to persist regardless of evidence to the contrary. It is crucial to remember that the Catholic Church itself has never officially endorsed this prophecy, and many Catholic theologians and historians have raised doubts about it from the beginning. The historical value of the document and the final call to the community. Even as a 16th century creation, the prophecy of Saint Malachy is a valuable historical document. It gives us a fascinating glimpse into the apocalyptic anxieties, the tactics of religious propaganda, and the complex power struggles of the Counter-Reformation era. It reveals how people of that time viewed the papacy and the future of the Church. Studying texts like this requires critical thinking and historical awareness. It is not about rejecting mystery or spirituality, but about approaching them with discernment, separating what is historically verifiable from what belongs to the realm of belief or interpretation. For believers, understanding the real story behind a text can paradoxically deepen their faith, anchoring it in the complex reality of human and divine tradition rather than in flimsy myths. Thank you so much for joining me on this in-depth exploration here at Gaia's Ascension. Our purpose is precisely this: to explore together the blurred boundaries between history, spirituality, and the cultural enigmas that shape our world. If this video has shed new light on the prophecy of Saint Malachy, if it has made you question, research, or simply see things from a different angle, then our mission has been accomplished. To continue this journey of discovery, unraveling other mysteries and expanding our consciousness together, sign up now for Gaia's Ascension and join our growing community of curious minds. Now, I want to hear from you. What is your final opinion on the prophecy of Saint Malachy after this analysis? Do you still see an echo of divine truth in the mottos? Or do you consider them an ingenious human fabrication reflecting the tensions of their time? What is the most important thing you learned or began to question from this video? Share your reflections, your own theories, and even your personal experiences with prophecies in the comments below. Each voice enriches our conversation and helps us better understand these phenomena that continue to fascinate us through the centuries. Let's build this knowledge together